Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, we drift back, far, far in time. Let your body relax, and your mind float like a papyrus boat on the ancient Nile. The sands are warm beneath the moonlight. The desert is quiet, whispering ancient stories into the night. Before us lies Egypt, not the Egypt of today, but the Egypt of long ago. Tall palm trees sway gently in the breeze. The river Nile flows, calm and endless, just as it did thousands of years ago. Stars shimmer in the sky like polished gems, lighting the temples and pyramids below. In this sacred land, one woman would rise to shape the fate of empires. Her name was Cleopatra. But before we meet her, just breathe in, and let the silence of the desert carry you deeper, into rest, into stillness, into the story of Egypt's last queen. Cleopatra was born in the year 69 before the Common Era, in the shining city of Alexandria. Alexandria, a city of marble and knowledge, where the great library reached for the heavens, and ships filled with spices and scrolls drifted gently into its harbor. Cleopatra was born into royalty, a princess of the Ptolemaic dynasty, descendants of a general of Alexander the Great. Though Egyptian in spirit, her family was of Macedonian Greek origin, and they ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years. As a baby, Cleopatra was cradled in silks, shaded beneath gold-draped cradles, in chambers filled with perfume and lullabies. Outside, the city buzzed with scribes and scholars, merchants and musicians. But within the palace, her world was calm and cocooned. She was the third child, born into a world of power and politics. But for now, she was simply a child, safe and dreaming in the golden arms of Alexandria. As the days passed and the seasons turned, Cleopatra grew beneath the painted ceilings of the royal palace. Marble floors stretched beneath her small feet, and mosaics of lotus flowers and ancient gods lined the walls. Her home was not just a palace, it was a world of wonder. She woke to the soft strumming of lyres, she bathed in scented waters drawn from silver bowls, and every day, she learned. Cleopatra was no ordinary child. Even as a young girl, she was curious, clever, and bold. Her tutors taught her many languages, Greek, Latin, Aramaic, and even the sacred tongue of the Egyptians. She read stories of ancient pharaohs, studied stars above and scrolls below, and listened to wise philosophers as they spoke in the cool shade of the palace gardens. Outside her chamber, the city of Alexandria shimmered beneath the sun. Ships brought silks from Asia, gold from Nubia, and scrolls from Athens. But Cleopatra stayed focused. Even as the scent of blooming papyrus drifted in from the Nile, she turned the pages of wisdom slowly, carefully, and always, quietly. As Cleopatra grew, so too did her presence within the palace. Her voice, once soft and sweet, became clear and commanding. By the time she was a teenager, she walked beside her father, Pharaoh Ptolemy XII, listening closely as he ruled over the kingdom. Behind the velvet curtains of the royal court, Cleopatra observed debates, listened to foreign diplomats, and studied the silent language of power. She learned that the throne was not just a seat, but a burden, a symbol, a delicate balance between gods and grain. The kingdom was not always calm. Rome, strong and ever watchful, cast its long shadow over Egypt. Cleopatra saw her father seek help from Caesar, traveling to Rome and leaving her behind, not as a child, but as his eyes and ears in Egypt. She kept watch over the temple priests, the nobles, and the whispers in the market. Though young, she spoke wisely. Many began to say, "This girl is more than a princess. She is Egypt." The winds of destiny soon swept across Alexandria. When Cleopatra was just 18 years old, her father, the pharaoh, passed into the next life, and the crown of Egypt was left behind. As was custom, Cleopatra was to rule beside her younger brother, just a boy of 10. Though they shared the throne, Cleopatra's spirit soared far above. She stood tall in the grand halls of the palace, dressed in linen as white as the desert moon, crowned in gold, with the royal uraeus, the serpent of sovereignty, upon her brow. But the court was not kind. Power stirred envy, and soon Cleopatra was pushed from the palace by advisors loyal to her brother. Yet she did not despair. In exile, she waited and watched. She knew that fate still turned, like the wheels of the gods' great chariots. She camped near the borders of Egypt, surrounded by loyal supporters, and planned her return, not with an army, but with intellect and charm. And one name drifted to her ears like the sound of distant drums: Julius Caesar. The year was 48 BCE. The city of Alexandria shimmered beneath a silver moon. Julius Caesar, general of Rome, conqueror of Gaul, had arrived in Egypt, chasing the ghost of his rival, Pompey. Cleopatra knew this was her moment. She could not enter the palace openly. Her brother's guards would not allow it. So, under the cover of night, she sailed quietly across the harbor, wrapped herself in linen cloth, and was rolled inside a carpet. Her servants delivered the bundle to Caesar's private chamber. And when the carpet unfurled, there she was, graceful, radiant, unafraid. Caesar was taken aback, not just by her beauty, but by her wit, her knowledge, and the strength in her gaze. Cleopatra spoke not only as a queen, but as Egypt itself. That night, two worlds met: Roman ambition and Egyptian grace. By morning, Cleopatra was no longer in exile. She was once again queen, and beside her now stood one of the most powerful men in the world. The days that followed were filled with light, and the sound of water softly lapping against the royal barge. Cleopatra and Julius Caesar set sail upon the Nile, not as conqueror and queen, but as curious travelers, drifting through the history of Egypt's soul. The royal boat was adorned with silks, and its sails billowed like wings of a white ibis. They passed grand temples: Luxor, Karnak, Philae, their columns rising like stone giants from the riverbanks. Priests stood with incense, offering blessings to the queen and the foreign guest at her side. Cleopatra spoke of her land, of Ra, the sun god, of Isis, the mother, of Horus, the falcon-eyed son. Caesar listened, intrigued by a world so ancient, so different from Rome's marble cities. In those gentle days, under golden skies and moonlit waters, a bond formed between them. Not just of strategy, but of admiration. It is said that the Nile carries the dreams of Egypt, and for a time, those dreams floated with Cleopatra and Caesar, side by side, beneath the stars. Time, like the Nile, always flows forward. Caesar returned to Rome, and in time, he was gone. Assassinated on the Ides of March, Cleopatra was left with memories, and with Caesar's son, little Caesarion. Years passed, and into Egypt came another Roman, a soldier of boldness. Perfumes filled the air. Musicians played soft melodies on flutes and harps. Antony, enchanted, followed her back to Alexandria, where the days were filled with feasts, poetry, and joy. Together, they created a court of beauty and indulgence, but also of deep trust. Cleopatra was not just his lover, she was his equal, a queen of intellect and strategy. And in each other, they found something rare: not just power, not just pleasure, but peace. For a time, beneath the gentle glow of Alexandrian nights, the world faded away, and only the two of them remained. The world, as always, continued to turn. Far to the west, in Rome, power shifted like sand in the wind. Mark Antony and Cleopatra, united in heart and throne, found themselves facing the rising strength of a new Roman leader, Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus. The rivalry grew, tensions rose, and then the sea roared with war. At the Battle of Actium, Roman ships clashed under a burning sun. Antony and Cleopatra's forces were strong, but fate was not with them. They were defeated, their dreams, like sails, torn in the wind. The lovers fled to Alexandria. The days that followed were still, heavy with silence. Cleopatra walked the quiet halls of her palace, fingers trailing along the cold stone. She looked upon her city, its people, her son, Caesarion. And she knew the story was reaching its final chapter. In the stillness of her final chamber, it is said she wore her royal robes once more. Gold at her wrists, lapis lazuli at her neck. Dignified, calm, unshaken. And there, beneath the painted ceiling of the last pharaoh's palace, Cleopatra said goodbye and passed into legend. And so, her story ended. But her name remained. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, a woman of power, of poetry, of wisdom. Her tale has been told for over 2,000 years, not just in scrolls and carvings, but in whispers and in dreams. She was not a goddess, she was not perfect, but she was unforgettable. To some, she was the seductress queen. To others, a fierce strategist. But here, in the quiet, she is something more. A soul who loved her land, who learned its language, and who tried, with grace and strength, to protect it. Tonight, as you drift into rest, imagine her once more, sailing down the Nile, golden torches flickering in the dusk, lotus flowers blooming beside her, stars above, and peace within. Sleep well, dear listener. Let Cleopatra's story carry you gently to the shores of sleep. You are safe, you are calm, and the sands of time are still.